Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Arosha Bandara, and welcome to this seminar organized by the Center for Protecting Women Online at the Open University. I'm one of the stream co-leads here in the center, where we bring together expertise in regulation and law and policy, as well as technology and AI and software engineering and human behavior and policing, a whole range of disciplines to tackle this really important and critical challenge of online safety for women and girls. And this afternoon, I'm really pleased to be able to introduce one of our international visiting research fellows, Dr. Dilrukshi Gamage, who's visiting us here at the Open University at the moment and has kindly agreed to deliver a talk on some of the work that she's been doing in the area of understanding the role of labels and literacy to do with AI-generated content. Dilrukshi is a senior lecturer at the University of Colombo School of Computing in Sri Lanka, and she's, as I mentioned, a visiting research fellow here at the center. She's also a research fellow at the Weizenbaum Institute in Berlin, in Germany, and has served as an affiliate at the Berkman Klein Center for Internet Society at Harvard as well. In her past career, she's been a postdoctoral research fellow in Japan at the Tokyo Institute of Technology, and is currently an academic in Colombo, leading on efforts to build a human-computer interaction research community in South Asia. And Dilrukshi I've had the pleasure and privilege of working with Dilrukshi together with colleagues in the center over the past year and a half, where we've been looking at the role of AI-generated content in online interactions and ways in which we can make that safer through things like good designs for warning labels and so on. And these are some of the things I think Dilrukshi's talk will touch on this afternoon. So welcome, Dilrukshi. I know you're happy to take some questions as we go. So I'd invite participants to please add your questions using the Q&A tab. And then when Dilrukshi pauses to take questions, we'll pick things up there. Take it from there. So we have just under an hour of time, and we'll get through that. So Dilrukshi, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Arosha. I thought when I came to England, I got to know the research group here has various backgrounds, and it's really nice to talk to psychologists and various discipline people. So I thought my talk I'll more talk on general stuff, how we approach than the computational approach as well. So we'll give it the first phase how I enter to the field and then how I continue on the field. So to set up the background, I'm pretty sure that when you scroll your social media or when you go to internet, you will find many AI generated content. At some point you would know this is AI generated, and at some point you may not know. The world is actually changing because what you see is not something that you can believe, definitely. So to set up, in the earlier days, we were it took such long time, and it needed some competencies in creating this content. But now with the AI, it's a matter of like minutes. You can generate AI text, audio, video. You do not need any technical capabilities at all. Just simple prompt will get you many of these things, right? I'm pretty sure if you have done GPT or like Sora for example, or else there's many AI voices that you can do with the simple upload and transferring to other content. So just to understand these capabilities, these are really powerful tools, but how and what things they have done to the real world. These are real examples that I'm going to share with you just to, show you. Of course, you might know some of the incidents, but the trajectory is really changing how we started and how it's moving. So I just took one or few examples. This was last year. Taylor Swift deepfake was kind of shared and obtained millions views. So this is not just simple deepfake, but all deepfake pornographic images of Taylor Swift. But in general, I would share, even though this was shared, but um, at some point there were many women in the social media who were defending, saying that, oh, it was AI generated, and because it was Taylor Swift, and the officials could quickly turn, move the content away. But if it's, if it had been your daughter or any other female, this would not be the case, because erasing content from internet is not that easy. But if you have a, powerful figure backing up your things, that's easy. So I mean, if you even search now, you wouldn't find it in the internet. Yes.
Is that the right slide? Are we in sync with your slides?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
This is the slide. Yes. And then one other example which should blur your mind. So this was 2021. It was the first time that AI generated voice came kind of, blur, in the sense one of the famous chef from the US is Anthony Bourdain. So he took his own life, and then somebody wanted to do a biography of him. And then the director, there was a story behind that, but in the end of the show, Anthony was speaking as if like he's the real person. That was the AI generated voice, and that is not something that Anthony would have, told at the big, at when he was live, but it was a new narrative that director thought that it could be beneficial for the audience to know. But it really raised a question now. Okay, this is director who's telling Anthony's deepfake voice to tell something to the audience, and who's owning this voice to say something like that. And it was picked up by this New Yorker's paper, and then kind of debated alongside of like what's the legislative position behind these things. Like, can somebody do this? To be honest, still there's no law who's owning, who's when we born, are we own, do we have the rights of our voice, or can we give that as a legal entity for somebody else as well? So these are all still gray areas which have been sorted. And moving on to the years, this is 2022. Now, even though now this is 2025, you might be often feeling people reaching you through LinkedIn. You never know. These are images that not necessarily real images. Sometimes, like, the bots that you can imagine who would be reaching you to get the first-hand information. And then at some point, it can be transferred to the real human. And at this transferring process, you would never know that you encountered a bot at the beginning and then transferred to the real human. So none of the transparency has been kind of visible so far. And it was a news at the 2022, but now several research say that people are kind of, encountering this in daily basis with the agentic behaviors. But it was kind of a news at the 2022. And then very common type of attack, which is like, impersonating yourself, kind of social engineer to be somebody else to make profit. So this is actually a real tweet from Sinan, who's a MIT professor who talked about economic conditions, and his deepfake video was used to sell cryptocurrencies by somebody else and profiting, and then saying that, oh, this MIT professor is kind of, giving good advice on how to buy cryptos, and this is the link. And at some point, it was so hard for him to report this, because most of the time, by this time actually, this is 2021, platforms even didn't have any mechanism how to turn down with reporting such deepfake incidents. So they have to write and then take, it took some time for him to take it down. Moving on, this is one of the real case. For the first time it happened. Usually these are, in the past, what we have had was static images, or like, which people share as images or videos. That was not real time, but this time, I don't see, okay. So yeah, this time it's real time, where Zoom call it was a kind of common meeting with their chief financial officer, kind of instructed the other subordinate to release some of the funds based on a Zoom call. It was like a real person. You would never know that, if you come to an online meeting, that the other person would be a real person or not. Was funny because large sum of transactions being made for 3 times actually, which is kind of intriguing and very scary. Now, even I see every day now, people sometimes when they go to interviews, they ask you to kind of do this into your face, do this in the sense like put your face in front of your put your hand in front of your face so that we can know that it's not a deep fake live thing. So it's kind of practice, because thinking that this can be a deep fake person. This would be the last example, but I still took it because this was the first encounter that lay people, or like general person, use deepfakes for their benefits. Like this 2021, people didn't have more access to the tools, but this mother who wanted her daughter to be included in the I think cheerleading team, and then she took the person's picture and made them be fake, and then told like, okay, this is not good for the school. And it was well orchestrated by lay people to do. But now we can move, coming like 4 years fast forward, we see them all the time, and it's really hard to distinguish from what truth and what's not truth. So I think the most compelling thing is that it's easy to create than use. For some reason, I don't see the syncing.
There's some delay in your
Yeah.
slides in the slides updating
Yeah.
online, isn't there? Can you try flipping one more forward and see?
Okay. Right. Okay. So it's I just did a simple Google search to say that, okay, how do I create AI generated cinematographic or real time? I don't have a background of this, and what can I do? And it gives me like many ways how to do it freely using me. One of the latest model is Sora, or else like from the Google, they have released a very shocking model which called Vio or Nano Banana, which doesn't even it gives you so much realistic images, and it doesn't bar you from or else I would say very less red taming seems to be plays in that model, where you can bring anybody to life. Let's say at some point you can see this, or like I was looking at like how Sora is shocking this video channel Samsung. He was like providing most of the videos how people really shocked. Even some intellectuals like Stephen Hawking was brought to the life, but he's playing wrestling and very unrealistic, which at some point it's disgrace to the human, what have they, during the existence of their research career to what they see in these videos is kind of shocking, and there is no model that's stopping from that. But when I started my deepfake things, actually that was in Japan, 2021. What we had was just simple tools like this. I clearly remember for one of our research, we wanted to create deepfakes so that we could test people's behavior, and then models like this was very much available, but still it's available. Like you just need to upload to create a video, you have to upload two images of what the target and what's the source, and then at least sometimes it will take 1 hour. If you can see, it cost you like $4, but now this is 2021 and we are at 2025. It doesn't even take few seconds to create a deep fake, right? Very good quality deep fake. So you can imagine the impact that we are making to the society. So actually, with that interest during my postdoc time, we wrote several papers on how deepfakes are affecting the society, how people are perceiving this, and at some point it was kind of picked up by AI safety report from the UK government, and was cited by this Nobel Prize laureate Yoshua Bengio in the AI safety report on how AI is affecting the general public. So I think the journey started from there, and then what we really did was trying to understand. Okay, so deepfake as a term started in 2018, and up to now, what are the sentiments, or like what people are discussing, and that became one of our key paper that I did during my postdoc time. We kind of extracted the deepfake discussions in the most notorious space, where we call the Reddit space, where anonymous users talk about certain phenomena more deeply. So we looked at the content inside. Actually, we use mostly computational techniques to understand what are the texts written by these people meant to say. But these are, because it's really hard for one person to grab all this and comprehend what they talk. So it was about like 12 megabytes of data, 86,000 of comments, which took part from in 2018 to 2021. So we use a technique called topic modeling in natural language processing. It's a computational method to understand what people really talk in textual context. We couldn't really look at what images they talk, because it was based on text only. But it was interesting, even with that text processing, we looked at each year differently as well, like from 2018, 2019, 2020, when the year trajectory moves, how people take things, or like what kind of interactions, discussions they make, until I think I've been, yeah. So I wanted to see what kind of conversations lead communities about deepfakes, and how these things change across the time. So mostly I would say, yeah. So you could see 2018, 19, 20, 21. It was really interesting in 2018, the yellow cards will say that people were more worried about, okay, oh my God, this is so concerning. There should be something, some regulatory action should be there. And there's, who are these people creating the morality behind that? And then, and it was appearing in more news than saying that, okay, this is more taking on pornographic activities. But strangely, when you move toward the years, the lesser the people talk about concern about it. People more, I mean, this is Reddit society, which is like a very close society where people not worried about what other people think. So So the most notorious discussions were like people made a huge marketplace inside these platforms. Like they were imagining how we could do how we could use deepfakes in their day-to-day activities, and they are more like field fantasies as well. So sometimes people hire the other people. Oh, I need to get a deep fake of my ex-girlfriend and I have $5. Can you make that to me? And there were people who are willing to do that, people who are offering to do the job. Requesters and people who are serving were very commonly seen, and there was no platform moderations stopping on those platforms. So it kind of hype inside the platform. I think now it's more than that. This was done until 2021. So the implications that I drew from that paper, which we published in CHI, which is number one HCI conference. So Reddit space became more demand too. So sometimes at some point when moderators ban certain things, let's say topics like pornography, they have another space that they could bring those things, which call at that time they had several of archived messaging servers. They are redirecting that, and then this was a safe place for people to talk about how to create deepfakes, and there's mentoring happening behind that. It's same as ChatGPT now. If you ask like give me like the easiest way to suicide myself. Earlier, ChatGPT just, gave such information. Similarly, this was a live community which provide you certain information, mentoring on creating any sort of good or bad things created by the deepfake. So specifically, it was customized, or like, people really came to the space to make pornographic images because it was a safe space for them to ask these kind of requests. Yeah, so the theoretical implications that we want, drew from this study is that it's often really hard for platforms to moderate discussions because sometimes moderating need because if it's large scale text analysis, moderating needs sophistications of understanding of what exactly they're trying to say. Sometimes it associates with memes, emojis, and the text is sometimes people use stars in certain bad words. It was difficult at the time to kind of understand what exactly they're trying to say, whether it's harmful or not. But I think currently platforms are emerging, but day to day we see different kind of morality, or like how people perceive different things in different ways on using technology. But now there's several interventions in the platform which will enable you to report things, or else like to take down post based on the impersonating as like deepfake. But one thing is like, how do you I think that led even the EU AI Act to pass a legislative action to say that, okay, there should be a transparency in the AI generated content.
Thanks. So a small pause for a question that's come up around whether that analysis was focused on some particular subreddits, or were you searching across the whole of Reddit for deepfake content?
Right. Yeah, it was across the platform, not a particular subreddit platform, because we looked at some of the niche groups, but within the technology sector, some people just talk, and then it was not much other movement. So we thought like, okay, let's take the whole Reddit platform and then see what's the conversations looking like. Actually, in our paper appendix, it kind of has all the user groups, or like the subreddit groups, which made that conversation, and we got mails too saying that Reddit's supposed to be anonymous, and while if you're making these user groups public, and then that's affect the research as well. So that's something that we had to be careful as well, because Reddit platform is, I think that the platform I think design decision that they want to make sure that these conversations are meant to be anonymous by all it means. Okay, so actually, yeah, so then this is like 2023, where the EU was trying to see, okay, this is something really bad happening and we need to take action. It's not, of course, they were looking at other things as well, how AI generated, or like how AI basically bringing implications to the other sectors, but content-wise also, it was a huge concern, like how do we distinguish from real images or real content to the deepfake content? And what technologies that the question they brought is like, okay, one thing that we can do is that we can start labeling. I think that was the time that I was transitioning myself from Japan to Sri Lanka, where I kind of posted LinkedIn saying that, oh, hey, I'm going back to my own country now. I'm looking for a research, or like I'm working on this angle, and if anybody interested, and we could collaborate. And I think that was the point that Arosha, we interacted each other, and then thought, okay, so I really had the idea behind me of the research directions that I wanted to go, examining deepfake content. So together, I think we did a really great research design on picking up where we stop as like, okay, there's a problem of deepfake content. I keep saying deepfakes, but terminology might change in the future, because the current research that I'm looking at is we are kind of trying to narrow down what deepfake meant, and the new terms are coming up as like AI slope, AI generated content, synthetic content, all sort of AI related content that we have to at some point distinguish from one another. But commonly for this discussion, I will say deepfakes wherever this content is generated by AI. So the whole background to this research was that we wanted to find out, or like we found a problem in the sense the platforms that we see every day have different ways of saying what is this deepfake. Or if you can see, CNN, they had this red AI generated fake image kind of word, and then BBC News said this is false, and which had a small icon of caution mark. And then moving to Meta platforms, it had something called AI info, and I think they started with something else, and then changed it to AI info. In the beginning, I think it was a small square. They had saying that made with AI or something, but later they have changed to AI info. And then YouTube had this altered or synthetic content as a small line of word with a hashtag. And then TikTok has the other type of way. So it varied across the platforms, and some platforms, the way that they present and the way that they name the content is kind of really varied. So we wanted to find out, like, does this warning labels, what does it mean to general public? And let's say that how the idea behind having a label is to communicate people about this content, and whether people actually take that content. We kind of narrow down a few of the research questions to see whether certain type of warning labels are more effective, or what type of communications that they are taking, and whether do they trust, and whether this trust thing will affect the platform, various things that we had in our mind. So we designed our idea in the sense like, okay, let's check some of the warning labels. But I think the challenging task was when we wanted to test computationally, we had to kind of narrow down what do we want to test, and that really led to a very, I would say this is one of the really great framework in the sense, when first if you are to design a warning label, there's many things that you need to consider, and for you to test whether what things work better, then there should be a systematic way that you could do that testing. So coming up with this label framework was one contribution to our research, actually, to say that, okay, if you are designing a warning label for this kind of context, label sentiments, the way that you write the wordings, and then icons, colors, because some warning labels had red, white, ash, just text, and then the position of your label, whether do you want to put position in top of the image or obscuring the image, or like below, that you can see. Even if you take below, it could be right hand below, left hand below. If everything matters, and then the content that you put in the label, like the word, not just the wording, but if, let's say that if you can have more details in that label, does it matters too? So all sort of things came into our consideration, and then we designed, actually the 10 of prototypes that we thought, looking at the current platforms, and we wanted to test systematically how really these labels are perceived by the people. So, you could see from the 10 designs, some of we took all the items in the framework where we kind of displayed in different meanings. So some images had deep, wordings has deep fake content, synthetically generated, made with AI, but all with the red, and then some are with the on top of the image with the fake content, synthetically generated and made with AI, a combination of label designs. And then how we did this experiment was that we selected 4 real images, and these are handpicked, well thought the images to test our hypothesis. We took real images plus the fake images. So you can see the real images. Two set of things are two set of images are politically related, and 2 set of images are entertainment related. And then we emboss these images, or emboss warning labels to every of these images, and then we tested it. Actually, we had a control case which we didn't have any images at all. So you can imagine in the study design, we had a control case where no images. We just had people asking whether, what you see is a deep fake or not, and certain questions that we asked. And then we had 10 other cases where we embossed warning labels for those 8 images and asked the same type of questions from everybody. So, and then at the end of the experiment, actually there was about 9. We targeted 1,000 people. I think ended up having 922 with the attention checks and all. It was a fairly bigger sample, which cost a lot too. Thankfully, for the fundings we had from the Center for Protecting Women Online, and then our results gave really great insight. Actually, it was surprising at some point too. One thing is that AI labels, or having a warning label, if you can remember, we had those labels for real images plus the fake images. Everybody throughout the experiment was, when there was a label in the image, they all thought, okay, this is AI generated images. Even sometimes some people have seen the real image, but still having that AI label or AI, warning label attached to it, they believe that is AI generated, which is good that but good and the bad at the same time. And also we want to check whether is your familiarity to that image or will be affecting for the AI generation, but it appeared as it doesn't affect at all for the thinking that this is AI generated or not. And we wanted to see whether which label affected more than the other one, because we had 10 different samples, like which most effective label. And we found that one of the label had small interaction. Actually, this is actually borrowed from CPWO standard content credentials label, where you kind of hold, it's a tiny black icon which says CR. It doesn't say whether deepfake or not, or AI generated or not, but when you hover to that image or warning label, it will give you a description of what it has been made out of. Like it will give you when was it edited, what tools were taken to create this image, and it's like you can imagine it's like a nutrition label that you see in your some of the product that you consume, right? So it has a large, like sometimes this description go more longer, and sometimes it's shorter, so it depends on where it has been edited and stuff. But that was the most effective deepfake, or like the effective warning label to be found from the people, because they trusted this one more, because I think it's giving the resonation. That's what attracted people. But at some point on the qualitative level of information, they told that's more information, overwhelming to read. But it was more trustworthy image, trustworthy warning label. And then, interestingly, having our results also showed that if you trust on a label, and then actually that will increase the trust in the platform as well. Imagine now having a consistent platform warning label throughout the Facebook, with say Meta or Instagram. I uh, According to this result, it shows that, okay, if you have a trust in such labels, it's likely that you will trust, these platforms as well. Interestingly, we kind of also wanted to see whether, because we had entertainment type of video images plus the political side of videos, and at some point we wanted to see whether how this political entertainment content categories, does it really matters when you are kind of wanting to share on the content. On the beginning, I think what we wanted to see whether does the warning labels impact your sharing ability or content behavior, but it turns out that it doesn't matter at all. But when we looked at more deeper inside to the interactions, labels didn't matter, but content type really kind of mattered, where sometimes you can see a little bit of political were shared more, and then entertain at some point. These are all different levels of interactions. Liking, commenting, and sharing interactions are seen differently from each and every content type, I guess. But at the end, I think what we wanted to conclude was that, okay, label mattered, and the way that you position your label mattered, and mostly how do we does this communication to having a label, only sad thing is that even though it communicated, it did not have an effect on people's sharing ability. that was, one of the key consistent research which we have seen from other research as well. So mostly people liked natural icons, like the star that you can see here, and they really wanted to have the AI as a term, opposed to having a deep fake or fake as things. They thought that's having those words mean itself is a fake thing, which is interesting, right?
Yeah, thanks very much, Dilrukshi. Just a quick time check that we have about 15 minutes left in our
Okay,
hours.
we can, yeah. So I think I at some point I dig deeper inside the data set that we had, whether how these warning labels is affecting to the sharing ability, which was not our focus at the beginning of the paper. But interestingly, there was no difference in sharing, like I said. But more concerning is that people really wanted to share political content. And I think at some point I did a linear mixed model to understand because we had real images plus deepfake images, and it was well visible that political deepfakes were more intense. People wanted to share than any other. It was not real political too, but deepfake political images that likely had a higher shareable likeliness. Yeah, so that's kind of one that I wanted to share. So I think moving on, what we need to do is not just the warnings, but those are just interventions we could do. I think within our next phase of research with Arosha and us, what we did was try to build tools on literacy. At some point, or like we built a tool which we thought, okay, we will focus on mostly younger generation, how to educate them on the deepfake or interactions on deepfake content. Um, uh, we had a research group who are, mostly younger people in the undergraduate studies. So with our user research, we found that people really like gamified things and mostly interactive things. So we came up with two theories. We wanted to bring something called inoculation and reinforcement learning. So inoculation is the fact that you will have a kind of a immune system in your brain to see if to see things more skeptical than what you see in the normal day-to-day life. So how we did that, we created a small, actually this was a web-based tool. We created so people will were given some of the images there where they have to spot to say that this is a deep fake or not. And if they get it, if they spot wrong, it will teach you how to spot correctly. And if they done it, then they will move to a next level. And that's the inoculation part. And the interesting part, the other one is that, okay, so this not just learning, but also like how do you behave when you encounter any deep fake. I think that was impersonating part that we built through characters. We had about 4 characters which had several incidents of deep fakes where they at some point a social media character exposed to pornographic content, and the character interactions will teach them what to do when they encounter such situations. So it's kind of contextual understanding of what they can do was kind of showed to them. I think this is I did not think of sharing more information because this is a research paper under review at this moment. um, but yeah, happy to answer more questions if you have. This research had, several mixed findings. Then totally say literacy is really working or not really working. I guess it's a mix of things that we got. Yeah, with that, I think we can have a discussion or have questions of how would you like to, take things. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Dilrukshi. A personal round of applause for a very interesting talk, and I'm sure colleagues online who are here would have appreciated learning about that work as well. Really fascinating, also because of again, there's well understood kind of disproportionate negative impact of deepfakes, AI-generated content on women and women's online safety. So I think really important to explore that and understand how we can use these approaches and learnings to improve that further. So with that, I'm going to open the floor for any questions from colleagues. Those online, you can either raise your hands in Teams and I can unmute, enable your microphone, or you can put your question in the chat. Give people a minute to think through and consider. Yeah. While they're doing that, I might ask, explore something, with you around that work. I mean, so the interesting difference you identified between people's sharing behavior of different types of content, and that like political deepfakes were more likely to be shared. I guess one of the, we don't really know the detail of that sharing behavior.
Yes.
So could you kind of elaborate a bit more about what would be interesting to explore further about sharing behavior with respect to deepfakes?
Yeah, so I think up to now, even research, I haven't seen a very comprehensive research reasoning why people share such things. But I can remember recently it was Steve Rothschild and Jay Van Dam. They had a paper on virality. Why is content go viral? Or like that was mostly on sharing behavior talking. And then I think that paper discuss about like people really like controversial ideas or the diff you can imagine, right? Like people really the day-to-day morally accepted things are well accepted, but if it's something different, then I think there should be a scientific reason behind it, but I still can't imagine how to test that through, unless otherwise we kind of, real time test it through a platform asking like what's the reason, or like there should be a large data set that we need to analyze to think of like, okay, these kind of things are resonating for people sharing.
Yeah.
It's the user behavior that need to be examined more closely, right? Yeah. So far, what we do in our research is that we ask them in an open text what they perceive, why they share, but it doesn't resonate as like why they share at that context. If we have a mechanism to measure that information at real time, I think simulation should be able to do that at some point.
Yeah, interesting. So we do have a question from the audience. Nicolina, I have unmuted your mic if you'd like to ask the question directly, but I'm happy to read it out as well. I think we could kind of hear you, but not quite. Can you try again, please?
It's probably my earphones.
Okay. I think we have some difficulty hearing you well in the room. So if it's okay, I'll read out your question for Dilrukshi. So yes, Nicolina's question is, do you think people's emotional responses to AI content, like being amused by it or even afraid or shocked by it, affect how they learn to recognize or question?
That's actually a really interesting question that led to my AI slope paper. So we examine, so you can see in mostly content where became viral in AI generated. So mostly virality has a sentiment behind that. Emotional thing was one of the highest, the people have tried in different ways how to change people's, or like how to trigger emotional behaviors so that it will lead to higher viewing, higher sharing. So one or two example was that you have, if you have seen this puff quoted Pope Francis, right? So that was shared in multi platforms with trillions of millions of views and shares. It was, emotionally triggering to the people who are religious at that time, people who have come from religious background, and it's very unusual that you've seen, right? So the similar kind of images really that's one of the reasons. So if you know the theory behind social engineered fraudulent or scam activities, they really pinpoint your a spectrum of emotions which will trigger uh, your spontaneous actions, and then that will lead for them, that will lead easy for them to exploit you. So similar theory or human behavior has been used for these sharings as well. I think that's one well visible phenomena that we see, how people socially engineering these content so that they can profit out of it in some way, scam or not, sharing, liking, viewing. The whole social media model is based on this foundation, actually.
Thanks, Dilrukshi. Any other questions? I don't see anything in the Q&A or in the chat. So I think we can wrap up our seminar for this afternoon there. Thank you so much again, Dilrukshi, for taking the time to come and talk to us. It's been really great, fascinating.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Looking forward to hearing more about the work as it develops. And of course, we'll be collaborating quite closely, I'm sure, in different areas. So thank you again. And thank you to everyone who listened.
Thank you. Bye.